There are places in America where parents warn their kids never to go: abandoned houses, locked basements, boarded-up classrooms, doors that are sealed for a reason. Yet our curiosity pushes us to open them anyway, and once we do, whatever happens afterward is entirely on us. This story begins with Emily Hart, a photographer and writer for a New York-based investigative magazine who specialized in exposing neglected public institutions across the United States. When her editor assigned her a new project documenting the country's most unhygienic and poorly maintained schools, Emily remembered her early childhood spent in Ridgway, Ohio, before her family moved to Chicago, especially the old elementary school she once attended that always felt wrong. Ignoring her parents' warnings that you don't go back to Ridgway Elementary, not after what happened, Emily flew to Ohio with her crew, planning to photograph the decaying architecture, the broken desks, the mold-filled bathrooms, and the dangerous neglect that children still endured. Her parents dropped her at her uncle's old farmhouse and begged her once more not to visit that school. But Emily, stubborn and curious, went anyway. The first day, she noticed a small girl repeatedly walking toward a dark restroom and backing away in fear. When Emily checked the bathroom, it reeked of rot. The flickering tube light buzzed violently, and somewhere inside she heard a strange, mocking laugh, though no one was there. And when she stepped back out, the little girl had vanished. That night at the hotel, Emily told her team she felt watched the entire day, especially on the rooftop where she swore someone tried to push her off the ledge. The next morning, a Sunday when the school was empty except for a janitor, Emily divided her team to shoot different sections before she noticed a classroom in the far corner sealed shut with thick twine instead of a lock, as though someone wanted to keep something in. When she pushed it open, years of dust exploded into the air, and the janitor sprinted toward her, screaming that she had no right to open that room, a room that had been closed for decades because, as he put it, things live in there that city people don't understand. Emily insisted every door needed documentation, but he warned her that something horrific had once happened inside, that after she moved away as a child, 13 students had suddenly started speaking in strange languages and behaving like possessed adults, until his father, along with a local pastor, sealed the room using chains and charms to trap whatever entity lived there. That evening, when Emily's crew reviewed the footage, every photo from that classroom was pitch black, except for one blurred image on Emily's camera that, when enhanced, revealed a woman in a long black dress sitting on the last bench, staring directly at the lens, though no one else had been in the room. Horrified, Emily returned to the school on her final day and found the janitor dragging 3 violently thrashing children toward a local pastor, their wrists tied because they were speaking the same inhuman language those 13 students had once spoken. The pastor immediately demanded to know who had opened the sealed room, because once that door is opened, something always comes out before it returns. Emily admitted it was her, and the pastor explained that opening the door reawakened the entity, and before they could reseal it, it would always damage someone. These children were simply the first. They all marched back to the school, where the pastor used old charms to lock the room again, warning Emily that the entity feeds on people's fear and curiosity. Emily left Ridgway shaken to her core, choosing not to publish the real story to protect the school from becoming a paranormal attraction, instead releasing a simple architectural piece while carrying with her the memory of that black-robed woman burned into her mind. And to this day, Emily warns people that if you ever smell a sudden sweet fragrance in an empty hallway or deserted building in the middle of the night, when no one is around and there's no incense, no perfume, no air freshener, just walk away quietly, because that's how it starts. One moment of curiosity, one opened door, and your life becomes the next horror story strangers tell on the internet. The story takes place in the United States, told by Sam, a long-haul truck driver who transports cars across the country. About 8 years ago, after loading 10 vehicles, including a badly wrecked SUV, onto his car hauler outside Los Angeles, he and a senior driver named Mike headed toward Denver on a freezing December night. Dispatch warned them that the interstate ahead was blocked due to a massive protest and accident, so Mike advised taking an old alternate route through the California-Nevada desert. After stopping at a tiny dying gas station for cigarettes, Sam accidentally took the wrong turn without realizing it, guiding the truck deep into barren, unmarked wilderness, where cell service died and the world felt unnaturally silent. Hours later, rugged hills, twisted dead trees, and an eerie emptiness made Sam suspect they weren't on any mapped road. Then a white, fast-moving shape like a woman flashed across his headlights. Fear rising, he woke Mike, who panicked upon realizing they were in a notorious no-man's land known for desert bandits. But with no signal and no way to call for help, Sam kept driving until they spotted a faint fire in the distance. Mike got out to investigate, leaving Sam alone in the pitch-black cab, where he shut off all lights and pulled the curtains. Suddenly, one of the cars on the trailer behind him began blaring its alarm. Then all 10 alarms erupted together, screaming into the empty desert as if something had physically shaken or hit them. When Sam silenced the alarms, he heard footsteps slowly circling the truck, then 2 sets of steps whispering in a language not human. And soon the truck itself violently shook, as if grabbed by massive hands. Children's feet pattered around the trailer, giggling, followed by a horrific woman's voice shouting at them from the darkness, after which everything instantly fell silent. Terrified and reciting Ayatul Kursi, Sam waited until Mike finally returned, pale and shaken, saying he'd found a burning fire, a furnished hut, and signs of life, but absolutely no people. Together they backed out onto the road and drove hours through total darkness until they reached the small town again at sunrise, where a diner owner told them they had wandered into Shadow Valley, a place locals believe belongs to non-human entities and where travelers disappear. Realizing they narrowly escaped something beyond the natural world, Sam and Mike continued toward Denver. But the memory of that cursed desert, its whispers, footsteps, alarms, and ghostly presence never left Sam's mind again. My third story comes from Lucas, a young man from Phoenix, Arizona, who took a long road trip with his cousin up through Tennessee and deep into the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. After hours of driving, they reached a small mountain lodge near Fayetteville, checked in for the night, and while his cousin slept, Lucas went out onto the terrace to admire the dark ridgelines when he suddenly heard eerie whispering coming from the floor above. Murmurs layered over each other in a rhythm that didn't sound human. Curious and uneasy, he went upstairs only to find the entire upper floor empty and dark, and moments later unsettling laughter echoed from the lobby, though no one was there. The old lodge felt cold and wrong, but Lucas pushed the feelings aside, and the next day they continued their trip toward Monongahela National Forest. As night fell on a steep, isolated mountain road, the brakes on their SUV suddenly failed. They stopped only because Lucas's cousin yanked the handbrake in time. With no cell service, no passing cars, and dense woods swallowing every sound, they eventually decided to hike uphill toward a faint light deeper in the forest. As they walked, Lucas felt something rush past him, fast and cold, while his cousin insisted it was just nerves, right before an invisible force slapped him so hard he fell, leaving 5 bright red fingerprints across his cheek. More unseen blows followed until his cousin passed out. Lucas began praying as he dragged him forward, while a low, guttural voice growled from the darkness, "You won't get away." The light led them to an old cabin with warped boards and a crooked door. Lucas pushed inside and froze at the sight of a monstrous creature crouched over rotten meat, tearing into it with long, jagged teeth, its stretched skin pale and its spine jutting like broken branches. The creature lunged, slashing Lucas's arm, and he fled downhill, collapsing near the road where a passing coal truck finally stopped for him. The driver, a local from a nearby hollow, rushed them to safety, and at dawn, when Lucas explained what happened, the locals only exchanged uneasy glances and warned him never to follow strange lights or voices in these mountains after dark. Lucas and his cousin returned to Phoenix shaken and scarred, and he swears that even now, whenever he thinks of those Appalachian woods, he can still feel that creature's breath on his neck. Number 4 story comes from a man named Nathan from Denver, Colorado. This incident happened about 5 years ago. Shortly after his wedding, Nathan and his wife were on a road trip heading north from Denver toward Yellowstone National Park. The early part of the drive was calm and scenic, but as night fell, they stopped at a small roadside lodge in rural Wyoming to rest. While eating, another couple arrived in a brand new Honda Civic with Wyoming plates, a newly married pair from Cheyenne. The two wives bonded quickly, chatting like old friends. When Nathan returned from the restroom, the husband asked him for directions, admitting he wasn't familiar with mountain roads. Nathan explained the route and even offered to caravan with them, but the man politely declined. Eventually, both couples got back on the road, and soon the Civic sped far ahead. Night swallowed the highway. Only a few cars passed, and the mountain silence grew heavy. Suddenly, Nathan saw the Civic's taillights making a wrong turn onto a narrow service road cutting deep into the wilderness. Worried the couple would get lost, he followed, racing through darkness where no cell signal existed and towering pine trees crowded the road. Rain began hammering down, blinding the windshield, and the Civic vanished from sight. After what felt like an eternity, Nathan spotted the car again, parked crooked with a blown rear tire. Yet the couple was nowhere around. Fear spiked. He and his wife waited inside their SUV with the headlights off until Nathan finally stepped out with a flashlight, scanning the dense woods. He followed, faint, unsettling murmurs echoing through the trees, like a group of people whispering in a strange, pulsing rhythm. The sound guided him to a hidden trail deeper into the forest, where he discovered an old wooden cabin glowing with a single flickering lantern. Peering through a crack, he saw dozens of tall, hooded figures kneeling in a circle around the light, chanting in a distorted drone that rose and dropped like a warped hymn. Just then, his wife screamed, her voice tearing through the mountains, and laid on the horn non-stop. The chanting stopped. All the hooded figures turned their heads at once. Panic exploded through him. He sprinted back through the forest as fast as his legs would carry him, hearing massive footsteps pounding behind him. When he reached the road, he found his wife in their SUV along with the missing couple, shaken, pale, and terrified. The couple explained a strange man with a flashlight had lured them away from their car, claiming he had a cabin where they could stay until morning, only to disappear in front of their eyes when the screaming began. Meanwhile, Nathan's wife admitted she had seen a grotesque, human-shaped creature peering into the SUV window with glowing red eyes. With no time to waste, the men rushed together to replace the Civic's tire as something unseen circled them, tapping the metal, snapping twigs, and whispering from the dark. At one point, a short, shadowy figure pressed its face against the SUV glass, its red eyes burning through the dark, before scampering away on all fours like some feral beast. They finished the tire change, fled without looking back, and eventually found a motel miles away. The next day, the other couple abandoned their trip entirely and returned home. Nathan and his wife continued onward. But to this day, whenever he remembers that forest, he swears he can still hear the low, inhuman chanting buried somewhere in his mind.